What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, the stage is set, the teams are ready to battle. Only one team can walk out from each conference and it begins very soon. The second round has come to an end. There are 4 teams remaining in both the Eastern and the Western Conference, or I guess combine them, there's 4 teams remaining, but only one team can win an NBA championship. Who's going to walk out, setting up one of the biggest and most surprising championships in recent history? That's what this is going to come down to, ladies and gentlemen. From the west side of things, 2 teams that haven't really had championship success. From the east side of things, 2 teams that weren't expected to walk out of their conference or to walk out of this round with victories, battling it out. It should be a fun one. I'm actually very excited for what's to come in this NBA playoffs. But before we get any further, if you enjoyed the video and you want to do more, and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. And let me know in the comments below your thoughts about both the Eastern and Western Conference. Who are you predicting to walk out of their conferences into the NBA Finals? And ultimately, what is next for the teams that did not hit the mark, that missed out on the second seed? Where do their future lie? And there's so many elements to discuss in this video. This might be a very long video. So ultimately, let's discuss the Game 7 that recently took place, and that was between the OKC Thunder and the Denver Nuggets. Now, this was an absolute demolition job by the OKC Thunder with an astronomical second quarter that took the game away from Denver, and they never really came back from that. Man, I'm so happy this series went to Game 7 because these 2 teams, very similar to the Clippers and Denver as well, they were just fighting tooth and nail. And I love these type of series when it's grit and it's fight and it's toughness and it's beautiful basketball, in my opinion. Sometimes the beautiful side of basketball is the ugly side as well. It's the big men battling it out, fighting tooth and nail, offensive rebounds and scrapping and 50-50 balls and all those things. To me, that is the beauty of basketball. For some, it's the ugly side of basketball. Whatever you want to call it, I love series like that, and ultimately OKC is the true definition of that style of basketball. Their perimeter defense was on another level today. Guys like Alex Caruso, who I'm a Bulls fan, so I know very much about Alex Caruso, stepped up in massive ways on the defensive end, and they just ran away with the game. I'm surprised that it was that big of a loss, considering Denver is a championship quality team, or at least they have championship quality players. They've won an NBA championship. Nikola Jokic is an MVP caliber player. I expected a closer game, but that's not what we got in Game 7. And I have to give full credit to the OKC Thunder for putting their foot on the necks of Denver and not letting go this time. Everybody probably thought, well, look, Denver has the experience. Jamal Murray and Jokic and Aaron Gordon, and they have a lot of guys that have been in this place before. OKC really haven't. So you'd think experience would win out in this situation. But the fact of the matter is, OKC was the better team, and they played like it in this game. It is as simple as that. Sometimes experience doesn't matter if you're facing a team that's better than you. And that's what OKC were in this series, in the regular season, and they deserve to be in the Western Conference Finals. And I think they're going to be in for another big series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So before we move on, let's talk about what happens to Denver now. Well, look, their new change in coaching was a very big decision heading into the NBA playoffs, and ultimately that does play a factor in probably the reason why they didn't make it out of the Western Conference. But put it this way, Denver, the way that I view it, has a lot of big decisions to make. Do they keep the similar coaching stuff that they have? Do they try to go completely different? That is ultimately a decision that they have to make. The way that I see Denver, they need to find a way to improve the depth of their team. They need to make trades. They need to make smart business decisions to make sure that their depth is going to be 10 times better than what it was this season. Without Nikola Jokic, they were the worst team in the NBA, I think, statistically. That, to me, cannot happen. You see superstars, I get it. When superstars are out for a significant period of time, in terms of minutes and whatnot, yes, leads do tend to get smaller and smaller. With every team, it happens. But there was a part in this Game 7 where Jokic and Murray were out, and OKC steamrolled them. Unbelievably so. So depth is a big part. Depth needs to be there to win championships. And so far, Denver's depth is the worst in the league. So they have to be better. Yes, they have the best player in the world. Yes, Jamal Murray is playoff Murray and whatnot. He always steps up in those big occasions. But the harsh reality is, two guys cannot always win you a championship, and they cannot play 48 minutes of the basketball game. So they need to find a way to improve their depth. And so far, that's their missing piece. We'll have to figure it out. You know, I think they really need a backup center so they can give guys like Nikola Jokic more rest off the bench, because the guy looks spent every time he plays in these playoff games. So he does need a little bit more rest, and he does need someone that could provide backup minutes for him. I don't know who that is, but they're going to have to figure it out. And OKC advance into the Western Conference Finals. And alongside of them, they're going to be facing the Minnesota Timberwolves, who absolutely took out the Golden State Warriors in lethal fashion. What do I mean by this? What makes it so lethal is the fact that Stephen Curry sadly got injured in this series, but Minnesota didn't give them a chance to bring Stephen Curry back. There was reports that Stephen Curry was going to come back in Game 6. All the Warriors had to do was win one game without Stephen Curry there. That's all the Warriors had to do. But you think Minnesota would let them have that chance? Absolutely not. Why would Minnesota give them a chance to bring their best player into the fray, one of the best players of this generation? That is what I call lethal. They took initiative and they put their foot on the gas, and the Warriors could not even give themselves that chance. I love Draymond Green's response to being eliminated in that fashion, saying, look, when they won championships, there were a lot of injuries on the other teams that they were facing, including the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it's important that you have to take one side with the other side. Basically, you can't say, yeah, we won a championship and ignore the injuries, but then when it happens to you, make excuses. It's a beautiful response, and that's how I view the Golden State Warriors. Yes, they're disappointed without Stephen Curry. I think they could have played a little bit better without him as well. But ultimately, it is what it is. One of the best players in the world is not there, recovering from an injury. That's the playoffs. Unfortunately, a lot of the losers in these series are teams with big injuries to big players. It happens at the end of the day, and it happened to the Warriors this time around. What do I think will happen with Golden State? Not much. Sure, they can make small changes here and there, but they're pretty much capped out for the most part. They've kept their core together for the next 2 seasons. I can't see massive changes happening for the Golden State Warriors. I mean, look, anything's possible. There's reports that Giannis could be interested in going to Golden State, but I can't see that happening, unfortunately, for the Warriors. So I see this squad running it back next season. A full season of Jimmy Butler could definitely change things for them, for sure. And I do believe that being healthy and trying to keep their team healthy is going to be important as well. Yeah, it's going to be a tough one for the Golden State Warriors, but they're still going to be a threat each and every single time they're in the playoffs, because they do have big threats, and it's really just about getting them all together healthy and avoiding those injuries in big occasions like they did, like unfortunately it did happen with them with this playoff run. And I guess for Minnesota, look, they're on a rampage right now, and this is what makes the Western Conference Finals so entertaining. 2 teams that were absolutely lethal when it mattered the most. Who's going to be the one that's going to be the most lethal in this series? I honestly couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. But my prediction is I think OKC is going to make the finals. I think it's going to be OKC's time. And I think it's going to be done in 7 games. I can't see this going any other way. These 2 teams are too good. And I think this series will be too good to let go in just 4 or 5 games. These 2 teams have so much points to prove. Everybody's been riding the Timberwolves, riding off the Timberwolves. When they faced the Lakers, everybody picked the Lakers. I picked the Lakers. And they showed everybody exactly what they're all about. And obviously with the Warriors, yes, there was injuries there, but a lot of people picked the Warriors as well, and they dealt with them very quickly. So will people write them off again, and will they prove people wrong again? I love what's going to be happening in the Western Conference. But then let's turn to the East. Oh, the big bad East. Well, the East is the conference of surprises, I would say. because the first surprise we could talk about is the Indiana Pacers steamrolling the Cleveland Cavaliers in, I think it was 5 games. I'm pretty sure it was 5 games, and that is astonishing to me because, yes, Cleveland had some injuries, sure, but that was the first seeded team in the Eastern Conference that dominated the Eastern Conference. I think they were first by 10 plus games, and they got dealt with by an Indiana Pacers team that's well-rounded, but was also another team that was ruled out. No one picked the Indiana Pacers to win this series. What I liked about some of the statistics behind this series is that the Pacers actually played very well against Cleveland in the regular season. So it goes to show playing well in the regular season and actually playing well against certain oppositions in the regular season, it matters. And it got shown off in the playoffs as well. They just had their number. And the harsh reality is Cleveland had no response. I personally don't necessarily like the way that Cleveland play, and I know I'm saying this as they are the first team in the Eastern Conference and they dominated the regular season, but there were too many holes in my opinion to Cleveland. They played a lot of catch-up basketball in the regular season, and we know for a fact that doesn't always work in the playoffs. We'll get to that with Boston, don't worry, but it doesn't always work in the playoffs. And when you're facing such a well-rounded team like the Pacers, you cannot afford to be reluctant. You cannot afford to have elements in the game where you're stagnant and anything of that nature. But also, the Pacers forced Cleveland to play a really, really isolation-heavy game. And to me, yes, they have great scorers in there, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Yes, Donovan Mitchell is a brilliant scorer. Darius Garland can make his own shot. They've got really good bigs in there that can play some defense. That's all fine and good. But playoff basketball is not always isolation basketball. Yes, it's slowed down basketball, but you still need that team play. And I think that's where Cleveland got exposed a little bit. The Pacers, they were moving the ball like no tomorrow. And they've always been that type of team. They've always been very high on playmaking and assists. And Halliburton was unbelievable in that regard as well, with his ability to facilitate. And that should be an interesting matchup with the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. And yeah, I guess the big question now for Cleveland is what's next? Well, a lot of people are going to be asking a lot of questions about trades and certain scenarios in that regard. I feel like Cleveland need more playmakers, first and foremost, or at least they need a style change where they are implementing more team-oriented basketball into their system, because they're clearly good. You can clearly look at their roster, amazing bigs, really, really strong defensively, really good scorer, and Garland is a good point guard, but maybe it's the bench options. They need to find more ways to implement facilitators into their system, and I think that should be their direction. Donovan Mitchell basically said, everybody's going to be riding off Cleveland now. Well, 2 years in a row, they've been very disappointing in the playoffs. I find it hard not to rule out Cleveland. I think they're always going to be a team that's going to be making the playoffs, but when it comes to making noise in the playoffs, I honestly have ruled out Cleveland in that regard. They're a great regular season team, but sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean much in terms of the NBA playoffs. So I think it's more for Cleveland. You have to prove us wrong. That's it. And Donovan Mitchell clearly has that mindset heading into next season. A lot of their players will probably be back. Cleveland, prove us all wrong. That has to be the goal. That has to be your goal. I'm excited to see what next season is for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And for the Pacers, they're a threat. I don't care what anybody says. They're a threat in this Eastern Conference Finals. And again, if the Knicks have any sort of slip-ups, the Pacers will be well-rounded enough to take advantage. But an interesting matchup. Moving on to the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. Again, another surprise, but another situation where a big injury does play a factor in the series. I will say this though, New York had this series under control, even with Jason Tatum in there. The reason why? Boston had 2 things that cost them big time in this series, with and without Jason Tatum. The first thing, you let New York come back twice away from home, game 1 and game 2, from a 20-point deficit. That is detrimental to your run in the playoffs. It's embarrassing in many ways. The second seed, the team that everybody thought would win that championship, back-to-back, run it back. Clearly, they were one of the best teams in the NBA. And they gave up 2 20-point leads. You shouldn't, whether Tatum got injured or not, Boston didn't deserve to win no series based on that alone. But the second thing is, they say they live and die by the three. Last year, they lived by the three. They lived to the championship. This year, the three killed them. It killed them big time. Put them in the dirt this season. Jaylen Brown said losing to the Knicks feels like death. Well, to be honest, that style of play is what killed them. That's all I'm going to say. And that's what I meant when I talked about the Boston Celtics in the last video. Feel free to watch it, by the way, where I basically said they need a plan B and a plan C because their plan A will not always work. And in this series, the Knicks did a fantastic job defensively of shutting down their plan A. And that's why they weren't shooting the most amazing shots from three. They had a couple of good games in there, but ultimately, a lot of those games were very lackluster from the three-point line. Seeing Boston take 63s in a playoff game, this isn't the regular season. You shouldn't be doing that unless you're making them at an unbelievable level, and they didn't. It's the harsh reality. So, New York had this series in the bag, in my opinion, regardless. 2 wins away from home. It's not good enough for Boston. It really isn't. And yeah, what's next for them on the drawing board? To be honest, I think they have to get Jason Tatum back, obviously, but they're kind of capped out as well. But one thing I talk about with Boston, they are one of the most aggressive moving teams in the NBA. They will make moves. They'll make moves no one sees coming. They'll make moves that no one believed could be done. That's what Boston does. When things don't work, they change them before anybody could think about it. So they've done that very well. The addition with Jrue Holiday and Porzingis is very key to that. No one thought that those deals could get over the line. Lo and behold, those 2 players were a big part of their championship victory last season. So I expect big moves to happen. And ultimately, that's really the only thing that I expect to happen with Boston. They can run it back, sure. If they run it back, I still see them as a big threat for the championship when everybody's healthy. They need different styles of play. They just can't have that live and die by 3 attitude every game. In the playoffs, you need to have adjustments. I felt like they didn't make enough, and that's why they lost. Moving on, New York basketball. What helped New York in this series is the fact that they have the clutchest player in the league in Jalen Brunson, but their team overall is one of the clutchest teams in the NBA. Yes, coming back from 20 points is a big thing, and ultimately they deserve to win those games because of their never say die attitude. But it makes it a little bit better for New York, the fact that they brought themselves to a winning opportunity in the clutch in situations where Boston should have never let them come back. And New York came back, and because of what their attitude is, they won those games. That's the first thing. The second thing I really liked about New York, they out-hustled Boston in every facet of the game. Guys like Josh Hart, guys like McBride, both of them, OG Anunoby, like, they have a team that's going to work harder than yours. And in my opinion, the last game that they played against Boston, Game 6, is just the personification of that. Yeah, sure, New York played an amazing offensive game, but damn it, they worked harder than the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics maybe have gave up at halftime, I don't know, but they got outworked for all of that game. And that's how that's how the Knicks beat you down. And that's how Boston suffered. So I'm looking forward to this game against the Pacers because there's 2 hard-working teams with a point to prove in a position where no one expected them to be. Oh, what could happen? I'm interested to see the matchups in this as well because if you're playing against Tyrese Halliburton, the Knicks has to stop his ability to play make and get others involved. So you might want to see Halliburton score more at the detriment of letting his team kind of suffer. That could be what an adjustment the New York Knicks can make. Very similar to how they play Luka Doncic. But if you're the Knicks side of things, you need to stop Jalen Brunson scoring. And you have to hope that other guys on the Knicks will step up to the plate. That could be Karl-Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby. It could be any person at any given time. You have to hope that they will step up to the plate. Because if Jalen Brunson scores, it's going to get everybody else involved naturally. Because all the pressure is on him. What a dynamic. Stop Brunson from scoring. Stop Halliburton from playmaking. Who's going to win out in that regard? 2 elite point guards going at it head to head. I recently saw a TikTok basically suggesting that no one believed Jalen Brunson was going to be a big thing for the New York Knicks. All the credible sources, all of the, I guess, analysts, TV analysts, were basically ruling out New York from the very beginning when they got Jalen Brunson. Oh man, even the New York Knicks man himself, Stephen A. Smith, all of them were writing this off. And New York is now in the Eastern Conference Finals. Look, I am not the biggest New York Knicks fan, but man, I'm happy for them because the Knicks have had a lot of painful seasons. And as a Bulls fan, I could testify there's a lot of painful seasons for the big market teams like New York and the Bulls and even other teams around the NBA. We've suffered a lot. The Knicks have suffered a lot. And yes, they're a bit toxic when they do celebrate. I do not condone under any circumstances putting hands on an opposing team's fans, which I've seen a lot from New York Knicks fans. But other than that, brag all you want, bro. Complain, laugh, smile, mock, do whatever you do, because Knicks fans haven't been in this situation for a long time. So they deserve to have bragging rights this season. And hopefully there's more bragging rights in the future. Who do I think will win between the Knicks and the Pacers? The Knicks have the better team. They've got better. Jalen Brunson's elite. Karl-Anthony Towns elite. Defensively, they're elite. They have a really good coach. The Pacers are very well-rounded. I can see this going to 6 easily. But I see the Knicks walking out with a victory. This will be harder for them than the Boston Celtics, in my opinion. If everybody's healthy, this will be a very difficult series for both teams. May the best team win. I would love nothing more than an overrated... I wouldn't say the Pacers with an overrated Halliburton. That's what people are saying, and the Minnesota Timberwolves with Ant-Man just demolishing everybody, and him winning a championship will be the funniest thing in the world. And the Pacers winning a championship, Halliburton's going to be the funniest person in the world, just showing everybody's championship, as they call him, overrated. You know what I mean? Like, that would be hilarious, and I would love to see that be the NBA Finals. I would even love to see the Knicks and the Timberwolves. That saga, Randall and Karl-Anthony Towns. What a story that could be. Both teams making that big trade, and they both end up in the NBA Finals. That'd be hilarious. I see the Knicks walking into the Finals. I see OKC walking into the Finals. That's my final prediction. But again, may the best teams win. On to the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. What do you think? I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care, and peace.